Councilmember Sundberg sent a decline yesterday.
Oh, did he?
Yeah,
Yes.
he was going to see robots or something.
Oh, okay.
So might not have a quorum.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just me. All right, well, I guess we won't be able to do some things and move things forward, I guess, as we go. So, all right, well, with that, we're at time, so I'll call the meeting of Parks Foundations and Quality of Life Policy Meeting to order. And our first order is minutes, but we won't be able to do much there. Since I don't have a quorum, we'll send that on for next committee meeting to approve those. Any announcements?
I will go ahead and make a few announcements. So we have the Veteran Salute, the 2022 Veteran Salute is Thursday, November 3rd at 11:30 at the Hyatt Regency Aurora Denver Conference Center. And then we have the holiday tree lighting event will be December 6th. And then I also, he is not, oh, Doug is here, with a mix of joy and sadness. Doug McNeil, our manager of golf, has announced his retirement effective at the end of the year. So he will be missed. And that's my announcements.
Yes, he will. It's been around a long time.
He did and ran a beautiful enterprise.
Yes.
I'm here. Thank you, guys. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah, right. So I guess we go right to, if nobody else has any other announcements, we'll go to the first agenda item 4A, 2023 Recreation Center hours.
Thank you, Lauren. I appreciate it. Good morning, Councilmember Medina. For the record, my name is Brooke Bell, Director of Parks, Recreation, Open Space, and with the onset of the COVID pandemic in March of 2020, the Pros Department closed recreation centers and related full-time staff were reassigned to meaningful work across the city. Over the last several years, the Pros Department and the Recreation Organization have progressed reopening the facilities and programs and expanded facility hours. With this presentation, I will share plans that build on our past successes and that further expand recreation hours for 2023. Lauren, could you go to the next slide, please? Thank you. During the first half of 2020, Pro staff worked closely with Tri-County Health Department and developed operating protocols that allowed limited reopening of the city's recreation facilities and pools by the second week of July. That was extraordinary. This was an accomplishment that most Denver metro area cities were unable to achieve in the first year of the pandemic, including Denver. In the fall, Aurora hosted our first tournament. This was a CHASA Women's State Softball Championship game, and each player was allowed 2 guests. And these were family members that viewed the game from the outfield. They were not even allowed to sit in the stands. By the end of that year, youth soccer games were being played with a limited schedule, and parents were asked to stay by their vehicles. We have progressed a lot in the last few years. In 2021, we saw the expansion of hours of recreation centers and pools, tournaments and youth sports program growth at the Aurora Sports Park, and limited return to in-person special events. It was the 4th of July and the holiday tree lighting that we were able to accomplish in 2021. We as a department and city have come a long way in advancing recreation center hours and programming during 2022, while challenged with significant position vacancies. The Aurora Sports Park tournaments and fall youth sports programs have returned to 100% capacity this year. Pool hours at outdoor pools extended beyond weekend only hours during August. This is something that had not been accomplished in the 7 years that I've been here. Lauren, could you go ahead and move to the next slide? There remain challenges that the department needs to overcome to continue to grow and deliver the services to the public that they have come to expect from the city and the pros department. Variable hours and full-time wages will be reevaluated early in 2023 to improve employee recruitment. Mid-level aquatics and program lead positions remain the most challenging to hire. Without the mid-level managers, the pool hours most likely will be different from the center hours that I discussed later on. Facility cleanliness is a priority. The department has added contract janitorial services while we continue to recruit for full-time janitorial staff. Available facility staff have increased locker room spot checks to also support the cleanliness in the facilities. The city's recreation staff have demonstrated over the last several years their ability and desire to continue to advance beyond the pandemic impacts and provide the quality service that our citizens expect. Beginning in 2023, the recreation organization supports expanding hours of operations at recreation facilities. The department and staff took a thoughtful, holistic approach developing that recommendation. Pre-pandemic entry data was reviewed at half-hour intervals to fully understand the recreation uses. Frontline staff were engaged and provided their observations on current center usage during the later hours of the day in particular, and other Denver metro area hours were also reviewed. Lauren, could you go to the next slide, please? So this slide has a lot of numbers on it. But what I will tell you about that is that the slide includes the larger facilities, including the Aurora Center for Active Adults. The first column shows our pre-2020 hours, so pre-pandemic. The current hours are shown in the center column, and the recommendations are shown in the final column. The 2023 highlights include Central Recreation Center will open at 5:30 a.m. on weekdays. This is a 1/2 hour earlier opening than what we currently have. The pre-2020 facilities used the pre-2020 facility use data and current use data did not support returning to the 10 p.m. closing time. So if you look at Central Recreation Center, Monday through Thursday, we closed at 10 p.m. We looked at the use data, the entry data, and also talked to staff, and we found that people coming into the facility really dropped off around 7:38. And so we're still planning to stay with our 8:30 closure moving forward in 2023. Other highlights include the Beck Recreation Center. It currently is closed on weekends. We will be, by popular demand, we'll be opening on weekends. So Saturday would be open 8 to 4 p.m. and Sunday, the facility is generally closed, but it will be open for rentals. The Moorhead Center, the hours remain unchanged from our current hours. Again, we looked at pre-pandemic use, and again, we saw a fall off of usage in that area prior to 8. And so we also currently see people leaving the facility around dusk or around 7 p.m. So it still supports the 8 p.m. closure time. Utah hours have already expanded at the beginning of the school year. You see that in the center column. We will be continuing to offer Saturday and Sunday open and lap swimming as well. And then the Center for Active Adult, the hours remain unchanged. And that was based on, again, information from staff and how the facility is currently used. We will be open on Saturdays for programming. People can come in for programs and rentals. And then Sunday, the facility is generally closed but open for rentals by request. And then our hours will go ahead and we will be revisiting the hours, reevaluating them periodically. and in particular ahead of summer and fall seasonal changes. Next slide, please. So we're excited to say that the Southeast Recreation Center and Field House will be opening in January. We do not have a specific date yet because we haven't taken the facility over from the contractor, but that should be happening in the coming weeks. The center hours are expected to mirror the hours of Central Recreation Center. The Field House hours, we do have the capability to have expanded hours in that area due to a separate entrance. When we first open, we expect the field house hours to match the center hours, but evolve over time with rentals and programming, expansion and programming. And that would be the intent. Next slide. And then we have our smaller centers. The Expo Community Center, we just opened the eSports Hub, and it will be open on weekdays after school for different age groups, and then weekends for rentals and birthday parties. We're still working on what the fee will be. Are there opportunities for punch cards? Are there opportunities for occasional free days? We want to engage with the parents and the school system as well on their thoughts. And then we would be open for weekends and other drop-in esports activities. The rest of the facility, it's still not a drop-in facility. It's a scheduled facility. For the rest of the facility, it's fully booked up for cooking, dog obedience, and dance classes right now. Meadowood Recreation Center holds the preschools, the summer camps, and Aurora Dance Art. Fully programs the facility in the evenings from September through May. And then the smaller facilities that you're familiar with, again, are open for preschools or rentals and evening meetings. Next slide. So our question, does City Council support, or do the members of this committee support the proposed Recreation Center operating hours? Do you have any questions that we plan for January 2023? And then our plan is to take this and move this forward to study session to share with the broader council.
Okay, great. Councilmember Coombs, do you have any questions?
Yeah, just if you can talk a little bit about the Meadowood Center. I know we visited, and kind of talked through that, and there is the gymnastics program and space. Just what are we looking at given that that program is not back up and running?
So we're early in conversations about what that would look like, and is there an opportunity to use some of the money from the Bronco distribution, the 3.8 million. There's a lot of different suggestions on that 3.8 million, but one of the suggestions that we're looking at is how do we repurpose that area and what does it become? And we're still very early in that discussion. But we are, I will tell you, Councilmember Coombs, we're aware and we are working on that.
Any other questions, Councilmember Coombs?
No, that's it. Looks good to me.
All right. Yeah, my question is around that too, I guess. You know, Meadowood too, having run that facility before and knowing the gymnastics situation. I hope there's some conversation that, you know, I know for a fact that dance has needed a bigger space, and maybe that's the potential there, is to maybe convert that to a bunch of more floor space for dance, because I know that they currently use the space there above, and I know that they could certainly use a bigger space. So that might be an opportunity if they haven't already thought about that. So that would be my suggestions.
And thank you. That is part of the ongoing discussion. That's very much front and center in the discussion.
Oh, good. Thank you. With that, we can move on to the next agenda. We'll come back and approve minutes too, since we now have a quorum. So
Apologies for getting on late. I was having to type a CAPTCHA like 6 times.
Yeah, I had some issues too, so you're good. So yeah, we just want to make sure we approve those, approval of minutes.
Yep, they
You're
look
all
good
good?
to me.
All right, so we got that. So we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is 4B, Green Valley Ranch East Neighborhood Park name.
You know, I don't see Kurt Bish on the call. And this is his item.
He had been on the call earlier, so something must have happened with his connection.
Okay.
You
I
want
am in the office. I could check with him briefly. I think he might be here.
He's in the office, yes.
Let me pop over real quick.
Do you want to move on to the next item and while you track him
that's
down?
fine. Yeah.
Let me pull up the next one briefly.
All right, so the next is medians. 4C.
Nicole, are you ready to go on medians?
I am. My name is Nicole Ankeny, and I am new to the city. I am the Parks Planning, Design, and Construction Manager. So I replaced Tracy Young, and I appreciate you allowing me the time today to propose our 22 medians. Next, please. For some reference, and I know you guys are probably fairly familiar with our median program already, but these pictures illustrate what we call the current status, which is whether they're undeveloped, partially developed, or landscaped. So you can see on the picture to the left, that is completely undeveloped, which also means it lacks curb and gutter. In the middle, the partially developed medians that we have throughout the city are considered partially developed because they already have existing curb and gutter. And then the one to the right is completely landscaped. Next. This diagram illustrates the current status throughout the entire city of where we are in completing our median program. The green illustrates the medians that we have that are completely landscaped. That purple or pink color illustrates the partially landscaped medians, and the orange serves as the undeveloped, which means they do not have the curb and gutter. So you can see from this slide, we have essentially about 50 miles left of medians to complete throughout the city. Next slide, please. When it comes to funding available, we do have some 2022 carry forward funding, and we also have the proposed 2023 budget, which was presented to City Council Monday night. That gives us a total of a little over $2.4 million. And please note that 10% of that is anticipated for our design costs and review processes. We do have a selection process to ensure that we are approaching this with as much fairness as possible throughout the city. And we have a scoring matrix that utilizes many different factors. We start with the status, the undeveloped, partially developed, or landscaped. We also review any safety concerns that we have received throughout the year. We take a look at resident and council requests as those come in throughout the year as well. And we compare that to economic development and adjacent land uses, looking at whether or not it's adjacent to residential, mixed use, or commercial. We also take into consideration whether or not that median section will complete a section of median altogether. We have to have, our matrix has several sections along each roadway, so completing an entire section along a roadway is important, and we take that into consideration. We also look for some geographical equity, making sure that we are providing projects across the various wards. And the last thing that we consider is that we actually reach out to Aurora Water and Public Works to understand their proposed capital improvements, and we will postpone any medians that are scheduled for other roadway or utility construction, just because there's a conflict of interest and we want to be sure that we are protecting our taxpayer dollars. Next slide, please. So this is the list for our 2022 recommended medians. You'll see here that we've got 8 projects, and they do cover all of the wards. We've got Peoria Street, which runs from Iliff to Yale. We've then got Peoria from Yale to Parker. Buckley, which runs Alameda to East Exposition Drive. Then we have Airport from East Centertech Parkway to Alameda. Tower Road, which is 38th to I-70. Hampton, which runs from Buckley to Tower. Chambers, which runs from Alameda to Mississippi. And finally, 6th Avenue from Potomac to Sable. And you can see the various wards here and the status of whether they were partially or undeveloped, partially developed, or fully landscaped. In this case, we have all partially developed, which means they have the existing curb and gutter. And you can see some of the resident requests, which oftentimes those get combined with council requests, what the economic development use was adjacent, whether or not it completes the section, and the total cost estimate. Next slide, please. This map shows those locations and shows throughout the entire city where those would occur. And again, has the budgetary numbers. Next, please. Now I'm going to run through each section just so that you can get a sense of what it looks like currently today. And then we have an aerial photo and a current photo. So this is North Tower Road. Again, that's 38th Avenue to I-70. It is in Ward 2. And you can see the current condition there. The cost on this one's approximately $362,000. Next slide, please. This is East 6th Avenue, so Potomac to Sable in Ward 1. And here again are the aerial photo and associated site photo. The cost on this one is a smaller median, so the cost on this one is much lower at $36,000. Next slide. Number 3 is Chambers Road. You can see here the conditions of the median. The style of the median looks a little bit different. It's in Ward 3, and the cost on this one is $304,000. Next, please. South Peoria Street, which is this section is Iliff to Yale and is in Ward 4. This one's about a third of a mile, and the cost is $301,000. Next slide. This is the other portion of South Peoria, which runs Yale to Parker. The cost on this portion of Peoria is $279,000. Next slide, please. South Airport Boulevard, this runs again from East Centertech Parkway to Alameda. This does cover wards 2 and 3. The cost here is about $439,000, and it's about a half a mile long. Next slide. South Buckley Road from Alameda to East Exposition Drive, Ward 3. This is a much smaller median as well, and so the cost is much lower at $19,000. Next slide, please. And finally, the 8th proposed median project is East Hamden Avenue from Buckley to Tower, and it does cover wards 5 and 6, and you can see the existing condition below. This one is just a little under a mile, and the cost is coming in about $422,000. Next slide. To give a quick overview on where we are at with regards to the 2021 medians, and just as a reminder, those were approved in August of 2021. Those projects include North Chambers Road, South Peoria Street, South Xanadu Way to I-25, South Chambers Road, and East Aurora Parkway. Those are currently in the final design stage. We are nearly complete with those, and they will be under review. So we anticipate going out to bid in early 2023. And that concludes my update on the proposed medians for 2022 with an overview of the status on 2021. Does anybody have any questions?
Any questions, Councilmember Coombs?
Yes, I have a question about just what kind of landscaping we're going to be doing. I know that we had determined not to put any turf in medians moving forward. But I've also heard concerns about trees in medians and the condition of trees in medians. So I'm wondering, are we including trees in our landscaping moving forward? And if so, how are we making sure that the condition of those trees remains healthy?
Currently, the design is a xeriscape design, as you mentioned, and we do not have any proposed trees in these medians. When we are putting these medians in, we are not putting in permanent irrigation systems. So we are using a water truck to water for 3 years to make sure that the plants can become established. But at this point in time, we haven't identified any tree species that we feel are likely to be successful in those. It's something that we are evaluating as we go. Of course, some of our existing medians do have trees, and we do not want to be removing healthy trees. So I think overall, we're trying to balance the new requirements, be very cognizant of water usage, and also look to the future to understand what's going to be viable long term.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nicole, and welcome to the city of Aurora. We're glad to have you. I've worked with Tracy before, so hopefully we'll interact as well. So thank you for that presentation, and we'll move on to the next agenda item. No one else? I don't have any questions for you. All right, I guess we're at miscellaneous matters for consideration. Anyone?
Do we have Kurt available? We can go back to the
that's
Green
right.
Valley Ranch.
The Green Valley Ranch.
Thank you, Councilmember Medina.
Yes, I'm here.
All right.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I apologize. My laptop froze on me and I had to restart it and reconnect. So in any case, I'm Kurt Bish, Planning Supervisor in the Planning, Design, and Construction Division, which is Nicole's division. So the item before the committee this morning pertains to a new neighborhood park that's going to be coming online next year in 2023. Next slide, please. The citywide park system is comprised of both city-owned as well as non-city-owned parks. For example, as the city continues to grow and develop, some developers choose to construct, own, and maintain parks through metro districts, while other developers decide to construct the parks and then turn them over to the city to own and maintain. Next slide. So for the Green Valley Ranch East development, which the developer is Oakwood Homes, they've opted to construct a 5.7 acre park and to turn it over to pros to own and maintain. The development is located in Northeast Aurora between Piccadilly Road and E470, as well as between 38th and 52nd Avenues. The park we're talking about today is basically centrally located within the development. The park is currently under construction, and because it's going to be in addition to PRO's department's park inventory, we must officially name it. Next slide. The city's policy for naming parks was established in 1993, and under this policy, a name can be submitted by the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board through the city manager's office to city council for approval. So on April 6th of this year, the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board approved forwarding a proposed name for consideration. Next slide. The proposed park name was agreed to by both the developer and PRO's staff before being forwarded to the Parks and Recreation Advisory Board. And the inspiration for the name came from public art, which will be installed in the park. The image on the left of this slide is the artist's rendering of the artwork. Next slide. The artist has named the piece of art "Listen to the Whispering Wind." And the piece of art is basically a seating bench, and it's integrated into a sculpture which consists of large plumes of grass being blown by the wind. So as a result, we came up with the name Windy Plumes Park, and that's what's being recommended as the official park name. Next slide. So the next step to move forward with naming the park is to advance the name to full city council along with a draft resolution. So the question before the board this morning is, does the committee wish to advance Winnie Plume's Park as the park name for city council's consideration?
Councilmember Coombs, you have questions?
No, that sounds good to me.
Same here. It's all good for me. So we move it forward.
Alrighty, thank you.
Thanks, sir. Appreciate it. All right, next is, all right, miscellaneous matters for consideration. Anyone? Councilmember Coombs?
Nope, I'm good.
Staff?
None from staff.
And I think we're good. Topics for next month's meeting?
We have several, commission, I'm not commission, boards, advisory board, updates to do their annual reports. So it'd be the Parks, and Recreation Citizens Advisory Board, and also the Open Space Advisory Board, and then the Golf Advisory Board. It's due for them to do their annual updates. The meeting date falls on Thanksgiving Day, so the question is, there's two questions in front of you. Do we do this in November or have a December meeting? And if we do it in November, what day would you prefer other than Thanksgiving? So there's a couple options there. We
Yeah, I
could
think we talked about that, to either push it back to that
pushing it
Wednesday.
back to December would give the advisory boards more time, which I think they would appreciate. Because they would probably have to have their presentations ready within the next, I would say in the next 10 to 14 days, to be ready for an early, for a week before November or Thanksgiving meeting.
Yeah, I think we were talking about maybe the Tuesday, I believe. Does that work with everyone?
So
Councilmember Coombs?
are you talking about having a November meeting or
Not to go ahead and push it back to the December, not have,
December? Perfect, yes. Mhm.
and then go in December.
That would
And
be perfect.
I think we're looking at, I mean, it falls on the 22nd, right? Was what we normally would be.
Yes, that's when the regularly scheduled December meeting would be.
Okay, is that still good or do we need to push it ahead?
I think December 22nd is good.
Councilmember Coombs, does that work for you?
Yep, that works for me.
All right, well, we'll get together with Councilmember Sundberg and make sure that's fine, but hopefully it should be. All right, well then we'll plan on that. No meeting in November. All right, any other topics, interests, information?
Councilmember Medina, do you wish to circle back to the minutes?
Yes,
We did.
I think we briefly talked about that earlier, but
Okay, I didn't know that they were approved to move forward, sorry.
yep, we approved to move it forward, so we're good. All right, with that, no other things, and I'll adjourn the meeting. I'll give you back some time. There you
Thank
go,
you.
quick and short.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thank
Right.
you.
Bye.
Bye.